All right, let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Liz, the nutrition educator for the 912 Food Pharmacy program. Welcome. Can we do introductions? Who's on the Zoom? So if you want to unmute yourself and just say who you are.
My name is Margie. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Welcome, Margie. Glad you're here.
My name is Dion, and it's my mother, Pam. We glad to be here. Glad to learn something new.
Hey,
All
Dion. Hey, Pam. Welcome again. Thanks for joining us again.
I'm Sister Jackie, and I'm at St. Mary's Health Center.
Hey, Sister Jackie. Welcome. So today we're going to be talking about our seasonal fruit for this month. So we are featuring blueberries and strawberries this month. Blueberries are still coming in season. They've just started. Strawberries have been in season and they'll probably be kind of going out in the next couple of weeks. So we had a recipe for strawberries at the different truck stops. So if you had a chance to come to one of the clinic stops, you were able to taste the balsamic berries, which is in the recipe book. And so today we're going to be doing the other recipe, which is the easy blueberry overnight oats. And we're going to be using blueberries, but I'm going to be talking a little bit about some other fruit that you can use and some variations on it. So the recipe is pretty easy. It calls for a half a cup of old-fashioned rolled oats. So I've already got that in a mason jar. So the other thing that we gave you at the clinic stops was a mason jar, because we've used it in a number of recipes, but we're going to use it in this recipe. You don't have to use a mason jar. You can just use like a plastic container or a glass container or a bowl. But it's kind of fun to use the mason jar. And so if you haven't gotten one, we'll be getting you one. And then one thing I did want to add is do not use instant oatmeal. You need to use the old-fashioned rolled oatmeal, not the instant kind. So I've already got a half a cup that is in the jar here. And then we're going to also put in a half a cup of milk. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So this is just for one serving. If you wanted to make more servings, you would just increase the oats and increase the milk. So like I said, 1-to-1 ratio. So 2 servings would be a cup of oats and a cup of milk. And then the other thing that we're going to add is a teaspoon of honey. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of variation on that if you want to use something else.
I think Margie has a question for you.
Hey, Margie, you got a question?
Yeah, milk. I'm trying to stay away from dairy. Can I use almond milk or coconut milk?
Absolutely. You can use any type of milk. So you can use soy, almond, coconut, oat milk. You can use oats and oat milk together. Yeah, good question. Or you can just use regular milk. So absolutely. And then I'm going to have a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we're going to use a 1/4 a cup of blueberries. So it really is super easy. So all I'm going to do is open my jar up. I'm going to put my milk. I'm going to put my blueberries. And then I'm going to add my vanilla extract. You could also use almond extract. There's other types of extracts, or you could leave it out. It's not totally necessary. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of honey. So the other variation on this is you could leave out the honey. You could use something like agave. You could use something like stevia. So that literally is it. pretty easy. And the last fun thing to do is just shake it up. So again, you've got the oats, the milk, the blueberries, the honey, and the vanilla extract. And so what you're going to do is you're going to place this in the refrigerator. It's called overnight oats because typically you would make it the night before for the next day. But you can just put it in the refrigerator for about 4 hours and it is ready. So I have already made some here. So you can see the consistency, and I'll show you when I plate it out. It's thickened up a lot. So the idea is that when you're ready to eat it, you could just leave it in the jar and it can be portable. You could take it with you, which is kind of nice that you would already have it in the jar, but you can also put it in a bowl. And I'm just gonna take it out so I can show you what it looks like and kind of the consistency, the thickness of it. And I have made mine with a couple of variations. So I used gluten-free oats and I used strawberries, and then I added some pumpkin seeds to it. So the last thing when you want to serve it is you can add a little bit more milk. So I'm just going to put a little bit of drizzle of milk here. You could also add some additional honey if you wanted to. If you wanted to make it a little bit sweeter. And then the last thing that I'm going to add is I'm going to put some blueberries in this. So I'm going to take the extra blueberries and I'm just going to mix it up here. It is meant to eat cold, but if you don't want to eat it cold and you want to eat it warm, you're welcome to do that. What I would do is heat it in the microwave for about 1 minute is all you need to make it warm. And so then you would have a nice warm, easy blueberry overnight oats. You could also add things like cinnamon or other nuts or nut butter or seeds, lots of different things to add to it. So lots of different variations on it.
Liz accidentally logged herself out, you guys.
Okay.
I see that we have our friends from Gateway on now. Hello. Just a heads up, guys, that we are recording the Zoom so that we can post it. So just so you guys all know that it's being recorded over there. And Liz just finished making the overnight oats that come in your cookbook that you got when you enrolled in the program. There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. Getting calls for some reason.
Uh-oh.
Didn't join that.
She's a popular lady. But anyways, in your cookbook, you have the recipe. It's basically just oats, milk, and whatever kind of fruit you like. You shake it up in the jar and you put it in the fridge. And then you have breakfast ready for the next day, which is super convenient and nice. I actually just made this on Monday to prep for the rest of the week.
Okay, let's try this again.
There. She's back.
Yes. So any questions from anyone? Any questions about the recipe or anything else as far as berries?
This is an unrelated question. I didn't
Sure,
think-
Margie.
You said gluten-free oatmeal, and it would have never dawned on me that they put gluten in oatmeal.
That's a great question, Margie.
Other
So,
ingredients, it doesn't say it.
okay, so oats are actually naturally gluten-free. So they don't have gluten in it, but here's the deal. Sometimes when things are processed, like oats, they will process them in the same factory where they processed other oatmeal. And so you can have what's called cross-contamination, not other oatmeal, other grains. And so if they process wheat in the same factory as they process oats, you would possibly get cross-contamination. So they're naturally gluten-free, except for if you're very sensitive to gluten, that cross-contamination could be problematic.
They should say that on the package. Thank you.
But thanks for the question. That was a great question. And if you're not celiac or you don't have a gluten intolerance, you don't need to worry about those things. And you would know if you did. So got a trivia question. Blueberry muffins are the the state muffin of what state? And this is if you look in your recipe book, I'm going to show it again. We've added some trivia each month about the different produce that we feature. So it is in your recipe book if you want to take a peek and cheat.
Minnesota.
Minnesota, Dion, great. Yes, absolutely.
Dion, do you want to show us the jars that you and your mom just shook up? I saw you cooking.
I'm so glad you did it as we were doing it. So what did you put in yours, Dion?
I put the honey in mine and
Okay.
skim milk, and she puts Splenda in hers along with the skim milk.
Okay, great. So like I said, the milk, you can use any non-dairy or dairy. You just have to stick to that 1-to-1 ratio. You can use any sweetener. You could use maple syrup. You could use stevia, something like that. And then when you do the mix-ins, you can add any kind of fruit you want. Apples are great, pears are great when they're in season. Of course, we're featuring the berries. You could use cinnamon, you can use other spices. And then toppings, you could use chia seeds, you could put coconut flakes, lots of varieties. So you may be making this more than once a week, but you can use a lot of different things in it. Does somebody have their hand up?
Yes.
For the questions?
My mom want to know, can we use bananas?
Absolutely. Bananas would be great in it. Use what you like. And keep in mind, you can mix it. You know, if you want to use bananas and blueberries, that's great too. Mix it up. I did the strawberries and the blueberries. Any other questions? So I believe it was Laura that asked a question, and she's not on the call, but she emailed and asked a question about freezing vegetables. She was experimenting with freezing vegetables and she was having some problems with it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how to preserve fruits and vegetables. And I'll talk a little bit about vegetables first. So most vegetables have to be either boiled or steamed, and it's a method called blanching. And so blanching is what preserves the vegetables for freezing. So what it does is it helps with controlling the enzymes that would break down the vegetables and cause it to lose either its color or its nutritional value or its texture. So this idea of blanching is very, very simple. It's boiling or steaming, and I'm going to use a boiling method today. There is a chart that you can use that will tell you exactly how much time for each vegetable. So some vegetables need more time in the water, some need less. And so Ashley's going to put a link to a website with a PDF version of that chart that will tell you how to blanch vegetables, and it'll give you the time for each of the vegetables. So today I'm actually going to do carrots. So I have some, about a pound of sliced carrots here, and I've got water that is boiling here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little salt, and this is optional. You don't have to do that, but I'm adding a little salt to the water. And I'm going to bring it up to a full boil. And then when that happens, I'm going to put the carrots in, and then I'm going to time it. And so for carrots, it's 3 minutes. And at the same time that I'm doing that, I'm also going to have some cold water, and I'm actually going to put a little bit of ice in it. So it's called blanching and shocking. So you're going to boil the vegetable for 3 minutes, and then we're going to drain the vegetable, and then we're going to put it in that cold water and shock it for the same amount of time. So if you boil it for 3 minutes, you're going to put it in the water for 3 minutes. If you boiled it for 2 minutes, you put it in the water for 2 minutes. And then once that is done, we're going to drain that again, and we're going to put it in a container. So let me tell you which vegetables that you would need to do this for, that you typically would blanch. Beans, peas, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, carrots, even spinach and kale, your leafy vegetables you want to blanch. There are some vegetables you do not need to blanch, and those would be things like onions, sweet or hot pepper, fresh herbs, or tomatoes. You don't necessarily need to blanch those, but the other vegetables you do. So I've got the water here to boiling. I'm going to slide my carrots in, and I'm going to give them a little bit of stir. And I got my spoon hot, so I'm going to use this. Then I'm going to start timing with 3 minutes and put the top on. And then I'm going to have my ice water bath. I'm going to put the ice in it right now and have that ready. So once the carrots have cooked for 3 minutes, then I'm going to take them and put them, use a slotted spoon and put them in the water bath. Any question on preserving, blanching vegetables? Okay, I've got another trivia question. How many minutes does it take for a blueberry to freeze?
Margie knows.
Three minutes. I just read it in the book.
4 minutes.
4?
Okay. Yeah, 4 minutes in the book.
Whoops.
Well, you know what? You can test it and see. But yeah,
there you go.
that's pretty quick. A blueberry would not normally freeze in 4 minutes. Very, very quickly that it would take for it to freeze. So
Now,
yeah, Margie.
question. So I understand the process you just did with the blanching, but there's more process to it. Have you just not, I mean, how long after you set in the cold water do you put it in a container to freeze it?
You can do it right
after
away.
the 3 minutes, go directly to the freezer? Or
You can go directly. Once it finishes boiling, I'm going to put it in the cold water and I'm going to let it sit for 3 more minutes. And then I'm going to take it and drain it again. I'm going to put it in a container and it can go into the freezer. It will last, most vegetables will last in the freezer from 8 to 12 months. So they'll last a pretty good time. I am going to take a Sharpie and I'm going to label my container. So I'm going to label it with the name and I'm going to label it with the date that I froze it. And that way you would know. You can use either a plastic, a hard container, or you can use a bag, a freezer bag. Just make sure when you use a plastic container, it is one that you can freeze, and then maybe more of a heavy duty plastic bag that you use. And the other thing that you want to do is 2 things. You want to drain it really well so it doesn't form lots of ice crystals. And then you want to take the air out, especially if you're using a baggie. You want to make sure you get all the air out, because air is not going to be your vegetable's friend in the freezer. So we've got about 10 seconds left with this. So I'm going to take my top off. Top of my pot off. And they are boiling. And so I'm going to take this slotted spoon. So I'm going to drop them in the bath. And once I get these all out, I'm gonna bring it over there to show you the color of them and how it really just brought out the orange color. So remember, you're preserving the texture, the nutrients, and the color by this blanching method. Okay. Move this over here. Move that over here. So do you see the orange? Once I get these out, I'll lift it up and show you what it looks like.
And you can also blanch just as a way to prepare things to eat, to keep the nutrients, but soften them a little bit. With really
Absolutely.
firm vegetables, sometimes they're kind of hard to eat. So blanching is kind of a quick cook that just softens them, but keeps a lot of the nutrients in it. You see it commonly with like different kinds of beans, like green beans. There's a lot of recipes that use blanching. So that's a nice way to prepare those too.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that it could be a method where you're just starting out cooking it by blanching it to soften it, and then you finish it in another way. So I could take these carrots maybe and saute them a little bit in a little bit of butter and some seasoning. So here's my plastic container. Margie, you got another question?
What about radishes and beets and turnips?
What was the last one? Radishes, beets, and
Turnips?
turnips. I think they would all work, but check out the link that Ashley put to the blanching and that list, because it really goes down through each vegetable and it tells you in detail about it. So it's a great reference to use.
Margie, with stuff like that, I would recommend cutting it into pieces first too. Smaller pieces, you'll get a more uniform and even cook through. If you keep it as a big whole piece, by the time the inside finally got cooked, the outside will be mushy and gross. So cut it into pieces.
Good. And that's what I did with the carrots. I sliced them. So on my container here, I'm going to put carrots, and actually I'm going to put sliced. And then I'm going to add today's date, which is the 25th of May. So when I look in my freezer, I will know the date that I put it in here, which is really important. So they've drained pretty well. If you are putting it in a plastic container, you want to leave about a ½ inch to an inch at the top. You don't want to fill it up all the way to the top. Leave a little bit of what's called head space. So I've definitely got that. Move this out of the way. So beautiful orange color of the carrots. Done. So that is vegetables. Any other question about blanching vegetables?
Yeah, so if you're putting it in plastic Ziploc freezer bags, take all the air out, but if you're using a plastic container with a lid, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's not going to have nearly as much air in here. You know, this is not nearly as much air as if you used one of the larger bags. You want to just try to take it all out. You're not able to take all the out. Now they do make, you know, some of those freezer, help me out with those like sealing kind of thing that would take all the air out. So there are some mechanisms for that, either plastic, vacuum sealed, which would probably make it last longer, I would think, because you are taking all that air out. So there's also those things. I don't know if anybody has used any of those before, but yeah. So this is vegetables. What about fruit? Has anybody tried to freeze fruit before? And what was your success with that?
It wasn't
No.
good at all. I ended up having to throw away a bunch of strawberries.
Why was that, Margie?
Well, because by the time I pulled them out to eat them, it was just ice all over them and frost, and I didn't trust them.
Yeah, okay. So a couple of tips on that. So when you're using fruit like berries, you can keep those whole, whether it's strawberries and blueberries. Other fruit like peaches or nectarines, you would want to cut them. So you're going to take the fruit, you're going to rinse it, you're going to either cut it in some chunks or slice it, or you're going to leave them whole. But here's the key. After you do that, you're going to take a tray, similar to what I have, a rim tray here. And you're going to make sure that they dry completely. Let them totally dry. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put them in the freezer on the tray. It's all separate. And what that is going to do is it's going to freeze them individually. And so then after they're totally frozen, then you're going to take them out of the freezer and then you're going to put them in your containers. And so you're not going to have, like Margie, you said, that big chunk of fruit that you can't really do anything with because it's all frozen together. They'll be all frozen individually. So you're going to be able to take out what you want and use. Now, it won't be probably the same application that you would use if you had fresh fruit, of course. It may be different applications that you use it for, like a smoothie or something like that. But they will be frozen individually.
Now, when I do freeze bananas on a regular basis, I cut them up, peel them and cut them up and freeze them. And in the morning, I'm able to break off pieces and put them in my smoothie.
Right,
So that
yeah.
works.
And that's an excellent use of bananas that may be going on the way out, so you don't lose them. And it's the same thing with other fruit. If you have, say, some strawberries or some blueberries from this season and you aren't able to use them in a timely manner, then go ahead and rinse them, dry them completely, put them on that rim tray, put them in the freezer, let them freeze, and then take them out and put them in your container. And remember, label and date those containers so you'll know, because fruit does not last as long as vegetables. They would only last in the freezer about 3 months, not the 8 to 12 months like vegetables. So they need to be used sooner. Any other questions or comments?
Liz, would you wash every kind of fruit before you freeze it? Or is there some things you would wait to rinse when you're ready to use them?
I think you probably want to wash most fruits. Blueberries, there is some thought that they actually do better if you don't wash them. You just pick them out and make sure that you don't have any different, leaves or anything in them. Freeze them on the tray, and then you can rinse them when you're ready to use them. So blueberries are a little bit different, that they actually do a little bit better if you don't wash them before you freeze them. So thanks for that reminder, because that is the case. But other fruits, you would want to wash them. And you can peel them as well if you wanted to. Don't have to.
For the month of June, we'll be talking about peaches, and we'll give you specific instructions about how to freeze peaches in your monthly newsletter for June also.
So give me some ideas on how you would use the featured produce of strawberries or blueberries. Tell me some common ways that you like to eat both of those fruits. Anybody? We gave you a newsletter this month that had some suggestions on that.
Well, they can go in salads too.
Absolutely. So a lot of people don't think about that fruit is really good in salads, but it's excellent in salads. Both of those would be very good. And the balsamic berries, a lot of people were like, like when I was explaining what was in it with the balsamic vinegar, they were like, oh, vinegar and fruit? Oh, that doesn't jive, that doesn't compute. But then when they tasted it, they realized it's a great combination. So yeah, having some sweet, like the fruit with more of the savory with the greens, or just a really good combination. So yeah, and fruits like that also tend to go well with things like nuts and cheese too, which is nice in salads.
One time I had this, and I had it a couple of times at a restaurant. I want to try to, it was watermelon chopped up with fresh mint.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I'm wondering if that would work with strawberries.
It does. In fact, that was what was in the balsamic berries. So the optional ingredients was adding a little black pepper and a little bit of mint. So we did that. So yeah, it's a really good combination. You could also use something like basil, which is another herb that would go really well with that too. So yeah, I would encourage you to keep trying different combinations of foods. So especially using herbs and spices, because that really enhances different fruits and vegetables. So good suggestion.
And lots of herbs are coming into season now as the spring and summer continues. And those are things that you can use your vouchers for at the farmer's market. You can use your vouchers for herbs. So if you're out at the market on Saturday and you see some good looking herbs, use that voucher money to get those, and then you can do some of those pairings and test them out. Watermelon will be here soon.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you, if you do have a question, whenever you come to the different clinic stops, feel free to ask me any question. If I don't know the answer, I'll do some research. But in between that time, go ahead and just send us an email if you have a question. I mean, that's how we got to this demo about blanching and freezing, was because of Laura proposing that question. So it would give us ideas for future Zoom demos, that just some ideas that we may do, some things you want to solve.
Hello?
Anything else?
Hello?
It's a little not I just kind of want to make a statement
Okay.
that learning to eat healthier and make healthier decisions not only makes my body start feeling better, but it's pretty self-empowering.
That's a beautiful statement, Margie.
To think back on, I'm actually able to control and make these choices instead of those unhealthy choices. And it gives me a sense of, power and encouragement.
That's, yeah, it's your superpower. I like that. Yes. So you're absolutely right. And what you may find is when you start paying attention, and we've talked about this with each month, is in the newsletters, and when I've talked to people at the clinic stops about the idea of mindful eating and mindfulness. And that's just being present for food and eating with intention and attention, and also paying attention to your body, that you realize certain things by doing that. So it sounds like that's what you've done. But I love that idea that it is empowering when you make those choices and you're in charge of your food decisions.
And all that seems to lead just to a happier overall feeling. And in my brain, it makes your brain work better too.
Yes. And actually the next newsletter that we have coming out in June in our mindful eating practice, I have some information on that about, what are the benefits of mindful eating? And we do know that it not only affects us physically, but what we eat affects our mood. So you're absolutely right. Yes. So thank you for that comment and for noticing. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you all for joining us. Again, ask questions. It helps.
Thank you for having this service.
Thank you for
Absolutely. We'll
having
see you
us.
guys next month.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Dion. Bye, Pam.